So in leading up to the week before Christmas and the birth of the Christ talk, it's this week and two more, we're going to be doing some work around the Divine Mother. Because I realized when I started to lay this all out that the birth of the Christ couldn't happen without Divine Father, Divine Mother, the male and the female, the yin and the yang. And in the Western culture, we have spent thousands of years focused on the male aspect of God, the law, the will, whatever. But the love aspect of unconditional love and acceptance comes from the Divine Mother. And as we bring those together into this Christmas season, I think it will take on a whole new meaning that it may have in the past. So a couple of weeks ago on a Tuesday night, I had made a comment that I'm not sure what I'm going to do next because we're coming up to the end of the book, and as Spirit would have it, Barry forgot his phone. And I get a text the next morning from Trina. It's like, Barry forgot his phone. Can you meet him at the church and get his phone back? And it gave us an opportunity to have a conversation. And Coach Barry coached me. And I'm very grateful because I really didn't know what to do, and I'm always open to how Spirit moves. And Spirit absolutely spoke through Barry. And one of the things that became obvious, and in 2021, we've covered a lot of ground, haven't we? If you think back to January to now, we have covered a lot of ground. And Barry's idea was, as a great teacher he is go back and pick up some of the pieces and let's review how they work together. Because when you teach a series, it's like, a series here and then a here and here, but one truth, many voices, all fits together. So over the next 3 weeks, counting today, we're going to start to do that. And look at how and we're going to start with the 4 agreements that we had early in the year, and see how they interact and interlace with everything else that we've been learning through the year, okay? So I think it's going to be a fun time, but it's also a great review, because I found this week going through and getting ready for this, that I was like, oh yeah, I forgot that piece. Oh yeah, I've been practicing that, but this piece is missing. And when I started to look at it, I realized how much of all of this is really important. So when we started the 4th agreements, it's TOLTEC Wisdom. It comes out of Central and South America. It's thousands of years old. And what I love about it, it had absolutely nothing to do with Buddha. It had absolutely nothing to do with Krishna. And it had absolutely nothing to do with Lao Tzu in China. And it had nothing to do with Jesus in the Middle East. So when you look at how truth comes forward through humanity and through our history, I'm always taken with, if you throw out the words and you get the essence of the truth, how much truth comes from so many different places that have all come together through the years to help us here in 2021, 2022. Don Miguel Ruiz has brought it forth, the latest kind of rendition over the last 15, 20 years. He's called a Nagua, which is a spirit man, is a man who teaches truth. And he comes from a long lineage. His grandmother was like chief of that whole process. So when we look at, and he'll say over and over again in books, none of this is from me. This is all comes from the teachings of my lineage, and it comes from my ancestors, and it's what Spirit teaches through me now. He had a great quote in there. Life is nothing but a dream. And if we are artists, then we can create our life with love. Sounds a little bit like Abraham. Sounds a little bit like what we've been just studying in our spiritual adventure, right? This is the key of all the teaching, is how do we begin to create our life from a place of love versus what? Versus a place of fear, right? Those are the two main energies that motivate and create how we show up in the world. Is, are we coming from love or are we coming from fear? And this teaching is showing another way to get back in touch with love. And if we do that, our dream becomes a masterpiece of art. Who doesn't want that? Right? A masterpiece of art. So, quick history of domestication. This is a word a lot of us reacted to at the beginning when we didn't understand it. It's like, yeah, you domesticate animals. Well, we were domesticated too, right? And when you have to remember, and you don't want to go into a place of judgment here or condemnation, your parents, your teachers, your spiritual leaders, your siblings were all doing the absolute best they could. I believe that from the bottom of my heart. And it frees me up because I'm now free of the judgment of them, which makes me a victim. But all of us were domesticated. We were taught how to be in this world, were we not? We had to learn how to crawl, we had to learn how to walk, we had to learn how to eat, but we also learned who we were. Our self-worth, or lack thereof, was domesticated into us by those who trained us up. Most of our rules, and I call them rules, you know what rules are, right? BS rules that you throw out. We got a lot of those rules and beliefs before we were 7. And we repeat them over and over and over and over again. And the more we come from fear, the stronger these untruths are, and the more they play out in our interaction with other people and ourselves. Here's how we developed our self-identity. Here's how we developed our self-esteem. Here's how we developed, are we worthy of love or we're not? All was domesticated into us probably before 7. And then what happens, now I'm going to jump to Abraham, we're vibrating at these untruths. What showed up in your life? I'm not good enough. I'm going to prove it, because the universe is going to say yes. Okay. Dan doesn't believe he's good enough. We're going to bring more proof that he is not. And that will continue through my entire life unless I make a change. And that's what this 2021 year has been all about. But remember, all of your training and all of my training came from conditional love and from the basis of fear. Some of us had mothers that worried or were anxious, right? We had parents who were living out of shame. We had parents who were living out of fear. We have parents who were living out of whatever it might be. You were domesticated and imprinted with whatever they were living from. And that became your identity. That became your esteem and self-worth. We create a shadow self very early, very young, because we learn quickly, don't we? We're smart little whippers. We know what works and what doesn't work. And what doesn't work, we stick in the shadow self. I may still be feeling sad, but I was told big boys don't cry. Where did I put that sadness? Where did I put that grief? In my shadow self, behind me, right? Where do I put the anger? Where do I put the depression? Where do I put all of these things? Part of the domestication is we stuck it somewhere behind us. Why? Because we put on the mask of the good child. Oh, I know how to play this game. And it started at home, and then it continues into the first grade. Because then now we have a teacher. And oh my God, we have a principal. Now, I lost my fear of the principal early because I've been there a lot. When you learn to go down there, it was okay after a while because they paddled me in the beginning. I'm like, well, that didn't hurt. That made them even madder. They quit doing that punishment later. But we learned in that environment what was good and what was bad, did we not? That's how we learn good and bad. And we learned how to be good and put on this face no matter how we felt, and we stuffed it in the shadow self behind us. In my coaching, I often call it Pandora's box. We create a Pandora's box where we put everything that we don't want anyone else to ever see, that we think and feel. And we stuff it. Get away from it. Guess what? It doesn't go anywhere. It stays in you, in your energy field, in your being. You vibrate from that. That's why you've seen in this last 6 months, we've been doing a lot of work with this. You saw this come out of our Sacred Journey adventure called an electronic belt. It's no different than the shadow self or Pandora's box. These are just names for the same kind of thing. Stuff we stuff down and deny ever feeling. And put the mask back on and show up. We show up at Unity. We show up at work. We show up in our family. We show up in Thanksgiving like the perfect little son or daughter. Those are the games we play. It's not really a game. It's a mask we put on because we've learned how to do this. Stuff it all back. This is the area that almost 90%, and I use that percentage just for me, of spiritual and religious work never gets to. And it's actually where Unity missed it, I believe. Because way back when, the teaching was do denials before you do affirmation. They were getting in touch with you got to do something about this. The master teacher Jesus said you got to clean the wineskin before you put new wine in, or it bursts. So the teachings have been there forever. Buddha talked about the same thing. You have to feel the suffering of the human before you can transform beyond the suffering. So it's taught over and over again, but somehow in the 2020s and 2021s or whatever, we just want to be Pollyanna. I'm God's child, and all is good. That ain't gonna cut it. Because I can do that for 1,000 times every day, and I still have the shadow self. I have the electronic belt that I haven't dealt with. And I'm telling you, the more you stuff it, what happens? Something's going to trigger you and it's going to burst forth. And you're like, where did that come from? It came from the stuffing it down below. And we're not going to do that here, because as the light transforms it, we begin to move to a better place. The TOLTEC Wisdom taught that we created a judge and a victim within our being. You all know the judge voice, right? The inner critic. We all got one. And it's probably going to sound like one of your parents if you listen closely, or a priest or a teacher or a nun or somebody. But we all have the voice of the judge that we hear. And what does it judge? Right? When I judge myself, I want to feel better, I'm going to judge you. Doesn't work. But it's what we've been trained to do. We saw those who taught us do it, didn't we? They wanted to feel better, they judged someone else. The victim is where we blame someone. And we all have that built into us too. And what the Toltecs were teaching in this is we begin to remove both of those, and the mask starts to come off, and what comes out is the light from within us, our honest and open and authentic self. Another word for it is true self. In what we just came through, we call it the Christ consciousness, the Buddha nature, or the infinite Tao. Doesn't matter what name you put to it. But it's who and truly you are. The truth about you is what comes out. That's what we call it. We also talked about this in the Abraham, is moving out of that shadow self, moving out of the electronic belt from way down here at levels 22, moving up to 1. Moving out of disempowerment is the very same other words that go together with everything that we've been working on. So one of the things that we've learned early on, this goes back many years of me coming here, maybe 4, this whole teaching came from Hawaii, and it's called the Ho'oponopono prayer. Most of you probably now know it. But and when I spent 4 days with Dr. Hugh Lin, who doesn't teach anymore, he's on the big island of Hawaii, but what he taught this is a process to clean your shadow self, your electronic belt, your Pandora's box. And look at where it comes from. I'm sorry, please forgive me, thank you, I love you. You repeat that over and over and over again, and all of a sudden the forgiveness opens to the heart, and you begin to feel the love. When I met with him, I think I shared this back when we did this. I was standing next to him after the class took a break. I don't know, there was 30, 40 people there in Charlotte, North Carolina, and he was just standing by the doorway, so I went and stood next to him. And the energy that I felt from him, I figured was about as close to the energy I would have felt if I was next to Jesus. That's how balanced he was, his energy, and he just had this little smile. And I said, Dr. Lynn, what are you doing? He said, cleaning. I said, cleaning what? My consciousness, my being. Why? Because I'm starting to judge the students who aren't in here, being quiet, getting ready for the next segment of class. He said, I don't want to be in judgment. I want to clean that out of me. I'm responsible for that. And I'm like, no, you're not. They're responsible for them. I mean, I hadn't even got the concept at that point. But that's, if you know the whole story, and you can do a Google on him or YouTube, the whole story was he was in a mental prison, mental institution prison, and 156 inmates. They were the worst of the murderers and the rapists. And all but 2 were released from there, and he never met with them. He stayed in his office, looked at their folders, never opened it, and cleaned on the murderer, cleaned on the rapist. Why? Because he was responsible for them too. We're all one. That's some of the highest teachings that have been taught on this planet. And you can use it to clean your Pandora's box. You can use it to clean your shadow self. Whatever shows up for you that is something you don't want, just go there. You know, I put tapping to it for me, it works. I'm sorry, please forgive me, thank you, I love you, I love you, I love you. And get into the place of love, come into the heart space. And all of a sudden the judgment drops. Judgment of myself, it works on yourself, it works on other people. It works on life. Another way. So now we're getting into the 4 agreements. I don't know if you can read that or not. Be impeccable with your word was agreement number 1. What's impeccable mean? What's it mean for you? How do you know when you're impeccable with your word? These are questions for you this week. How do you know when you're impeccable with your word? How do you want to be impeccable? How do you want to show up being impeccable? I can tell you being agreement number 1, and Don Miguel says, this seems very simple, but it's the hardest of all. Because we've been domesticated not to tell the truth. Right? Well, it was just a white lie. No, it's a lie. It's a story that ain't true. That's not impeccable. So you're going to have to find your own impeccable, what impeccable means for you, and how you're going to show up if you want to use it. But I can tell you, as one of the agreements, it begins to change what's going on inside of you. It begins to change your vibration. As it becomes important to you, as you begin to share from a place of being impeccable with your words, something begins to change within you, because it begins to melt the mask. I cannot continue to show up in the world the way I did, because that mask was not true. It was something I created to hide behind, because I was so afraid that I was not lovable if I showed my true self. That's why it's there. It's the wounded child within each of us. And as we learn to love that, as we learn to love ourselves, and all the work that we've been doing these couple weeks is all about becoming more impeccable with our words. Our word is the most powerful force we have. We've talked about where's our power center? Comes out of the throat chakra. It is the way human beings create. In the beginning was the Word. In the beginning, for you and I, are our words. How many times have you heard people say, well, it's just a saying. It was just a word. I didn't mean anything by it. Yeah, you did. And guess what? You got the reaction you were looking for. But be careful. In the boomerang universe, it comes back. It is a tool we use to create. And the universe always says, yes. No matter what you think, and I'm going to talk about that in a minute, no matter what you speak, the universe says, okay, that's what Dan wants. We're going to bring it back to him. I know no one in here, but maybe some people watching the video might say, oh, this is too much work. This is too hard. It's the way we change who we are. It's how we begin to vibrate at a different place, so we begin to show up in the world, manifesting something other than what we are right here, right now. But here's the other piece to it we're going to add to other teachings, which wasn't included in the TOLTEC, is since all emotions come from our thoughts, and we now know that, we need to be impeccable with our thoughts. Because our thoughts are how we speak to what? Ourselves. And this is where truth gets lost first. With how we talk to ourselves. How we think about ourselves. Being impeccable means it's true. And you want to continue to ask yourself, is this really true? If it's not, we have a really powerful thing you can do, and we'll talk about it in a minute. No matter what you've been thinking, you can choose another. If I'm thinking about myself that is not about worthy or who I truly am, I have two decisions, two things I can do. One, I can judge myself for the judgment, or two, I can choose a different thought. And I can simply, what I do is take a great big deep breath and say, what's a little bit better thought? What can I think right now will take me up the vibrational scale one step? You can't jump from disempowered to bliss. I haven't seen that work for many people. Take one new thought will take me up one step. You know, I've shared this with you before with coaching people who are in a depressed state or suicidal state or whatever, a pretty low state. I'll say to them, get pissed. I don't care at who. It's your dad? Go for it. Get out a piece of paper and I want you to let it rip. I mean, you tell them everything you've been holding back in Pandora's box for 49 years. What just happened is they went from disempowered, total depressed, way up the channel. They're up in anger. We don't want to live there, but in this process, it's a major move. Choose something new, one step up. And you can begin to turn the downward spiral into the upward spiral immediately. Now Miguel talks about gossip. He calls it a computer virus. If you are one gossiping about someone else, you are spreading a virus, just like it's in a computer. And the virus will spread. And he defines gossip this way. Anything you wouldn't say if the person were present. We all do it. We've been trained in it. We do it subtly. We do it sarcastically. We do it whatever. And it's the number one thing he said. If you go back and reread agreement number 1, this is the number one thing that will bring you down. Not them. It brings the person doing it down. Because it's coming back. And it tears people down. Anything said that doesn't build up the other person is considered gossip. Watch your stories. Watch your sarcastic comments. Watch your tone of voice. We You know, you've seen the science study of how we communicate, right? Only 7% is words. The rest is in body language and tone. And we love to come back and justify and say, well, it's just a couple words I said about them. It's how you delivered it. Would you say that when they were present? And if not, don't say it. And then you'll stay out of that whole downward spiral. Because the energy that comes from tearing people down will come what? Tear you down. Comes back. It's the vibration happening. Are you building up, tearing down with your thoughts and words? That's the question you want to ask yourself. That's how you become more impeccable with your words and thoughts. Because the same question you want to ask about yourself. Are my thoughts building me up? Or are they taking me down? And you have control. If they're taking you down, no problem. Take a breath. What's a better thought I can have about myself right now? One step up. One step up. Small steps back. As you do unto others, it will be done unto you. That's all. And we can see it. It's true because vibration attracts like, and it comes back to the person who originated the energy. Being impeccable with your word is the correct use of your energy. It means to use your energy in the direction of truth and love for yourself. If you're coming from love and truth for yourself, you will be coming from love and truth for them, right? Because we're connected, we're one. And as we begin to do that, we can see that movement. So the question is, you go and define impeccable for you this week. So what sets you free? Truth. So somewhere work through that impeccability of what truth is. I wanted to share this week because it's the next step, and we're going to keep coming back to this. You know, last week we did this. I won't do it this week for time. But last week when we breathed in, I accept myself, remember? Just as I am right here. I said, work it out this week, try it. I've got a couple emails from folks said, wow, what a difference. I had a shift from it. That's very, very powerful. Now the next step is I want you to go to the level of appreciation for yourself. And these are the same statements made now. I appreciate myself as I am right now. Do the breathing in. So we've gone from forgiveness of ourselves to acceptance of ourselves, now to appreciation of ourselves. And I appreciate others as they are right now. And the way I do it doesn't have to be done that way, is as I breathe in, I appreciate myself as I am right now. And then I exhale. And I want to get into that feeling. So you have to ask yourself the question, how does it feel to appreciate? Well, do you appreciate good food? Do you appreciate nice people? Do you appreciate good wine? I mean, how about some really good chocolate? Find what you appreciate in life and get that feeling of appreciation for that, external, now bring it internal. Appreciate yourself at whatever you define the feeling as. You know, I appreciate beautiful sunrises and sunsets. It's a Zen time for me. That's the level of Zen appreciation I want for myself, for others, and then eventually for life. So forgiveness, acceptance, now appreciation. And what we're doing is building a belief system that is true in alignment with our true self. Not with how we were domesticated, right? And becoming impeccable with your thoughts and words are in alignment with truth. Because that's what sets you free. You cannot be happy and not be free. So you need them both. The second one is don't take anything personally. Oh boy. I had to share this one with you. Don't take anything personally. This is a simple statement, isn't it? Not easy to implement. Why? Because we were domesticated into personal importance. We were trained that it was all about me. I, me, mine. right? That's how everyone, that's who trained us, that's where they come from. Personal importance. So everything that happens in the universe is about who? Me. If that's your belief system, pretty hard not to take it personal. Whatever shows up, right? We're trained it's always about me. That's why we built the mask as we did. To make me be acceptable, make me be lovable, make me show up, be a good girl or good boy. It was all about me showing up in an acceptable way, no matter what I felt back here in the shadow cell. But I got news for you and me. It's not. It's always about them. It's never about you. Ever. Because everyone's living their dream. Everyone's living their illusion. Everyone's living behind their mask, showing up in life about them, just as you were about you. So whatever they say, whatever they do, however they act is not about you. It's about them. And as we begin to learn this, we begin to disengage from the energy of it's about me. No, it's not about me. It's about them. They are living in their dreams, in their stories, in their opinions. And guess who's the main actor or actress in their story? It ain't you. I can promise you, out of 8.5 billion people on this planet, it is never about you. It's about them. So if we begin to understand that, we can begin to pull back the energy and not get engaged in this ego drama that runs the show for almost everyone on this planet. It's never about you. Ever. And they are none of your business. And they are none of mine. And as we begin to understand that, and we begin to be able to pull back energetically, because what happens well, I'm going to talk about it in a minute, how they engage you in their stuff. They want to engage you in their story, do they not? Because it's about them. And they want you involved in their story, and they want to get you all worked up and riled up about it in one of two ways, either in conflict or in agreement. But they don't care which, because it's about them. And this story and this conversation is about me. And now I've got them engaged, and now it's about me, and we can talk about my past, and we can talk about this. That's the engagement of the ego drama that is gets everyone into what? Not freedom, suffering, conflict. And it's all up here, is it not? When you take things personally, then you feel offended, and your reaction is to defend your beliefs and then create conflict. Now, I know no one in here does this anymore, but I do. I still have work to do. And when I don't have any more work to do, I won't be here. Neither will you. When you take things personally, then you feel offended, do you not? Why? Because it's about me. No, it's not. It's about them. Oh. Well, now I don't need to be offended about that. It's their opinion, right? I'm going to value their opinion for what I just paid for. Nothing. Detach. Understand the dynamics of the ego dance. The drama is to engage you in this because it's about them and they want you to be participating with them in their story. No thanks. We don't have to judge it, we just disengage. It's like the lady I ran into the park. I didn't have to engage in her stuff. She thought it was bleak and ugly. I thought it was beautiful. So what? It wasn't about her. Right? And it wasn't about me. It was two people with two different beliefs and two different truths. And we went on our merry way. She's happy, I'm happy. And I could bless her to have her beliefs. Because I didn't get engaged in her story. It wasn't about me. Then we make something big out of so little. Now, I know nobody here does that either. Wendy, I got something showing up on my screen up there, please. We make something big out of so little. Nobody here does that, right? If you get offended, what happens? You make something big out of something little, don't you? So do I. Thank you. Because we have the need to be right and make everyone else wrong. So do they. That's why they're none of our business. Because for them, they want to be right and make you wrong. You want to be right and make them wrong. Where's that going to head? Right? It just is. It's not good, it's not bad, it just is. And when you can get to that level of detachment, you can just smile and say, okay, that's fine. You're entitled to your opinion. You're entitled to your belief. I know it's about them and not me. Now, does this mean, even though I know this and I practice it, does it mean I don't get engaged? No. I get entangled too and forget. But that's, right? No judgment to it. The planet of lessons. This is part of the lesson. To learn not to take things personally. I believe out of all the 5 agreements, this is the one that can change your life the most, like that. As you begin to practice this, you're like, no, I'm not going there. Things that began to trigger you, people who began to trigger you, it's like, you just kind of smile and go, yeah, that's Charlie being Charlie. And he's kind of done that same thing for 65 years. He's none of my business. I can stay in peace, and I can stay free, not engaged in the dance of the egos. Now, there are people who will try to send their emotional garbage, now Miguel calls it their poison, into your energy. You do not have to accept anyone's garbage. You do not have to accept anyone's poison. There are people out there who will call you on the phone, who will text you, who will go on your Facebook, and all they want to do is give their garbage to you. And if you find yourself sitting on the phone or answering too many texts, taking on their stuff, you got to be asking what's going on in me, that I'm willing to sit here for 45 minutes and take their stuff. And all it does is affect you. It ain't going to change them. They're going to go on the way they are after their phone conversation. They're actually going to feel a little bit better, they think, because what did they do? They shoveled all their garbage onto you. And you said, oh, please, heap it on. Make it a big pile of crap. No, you are worthy of not having anybody pile their crap on you. Now, you don't have to be ugly about it. You don't have to be angry. You say, no, thanks. I need to go. One of the greatest, I'm going to teach you the greatest trick there is. When you're on the phone, always have a piece of paper next to you. Ding, it's gone. Hey, bad connection. It's that important to protect you and your worthiness and who you are in truth, to not let anybody dump on you. They don't have the right to dump on you unless you receive the dump. Not your job. Their job. Disengage. You don't have to be ugly. Crumple a piece of paper and say, hit the off button. Or whatever you come up with that works for you. But do not, when you find yourself taking on other people's stuff, no, that's not a use of your time that's worthy of you. That's their, besides, those people who do that to you, you've got a few of them in your life, right? Do they change? No. And if you're willing to listen for 45, they're going to find a way to get you for an hour and a half. They're none of your business. It's their job. It's their attempt to feel better by dumping on you. No, thank you. I'm out of here. Do not accept it. Allow it to flow right by. Especially if it's an attack on you. That's the one's hard not to take personally, right? It's one thing if they're just dumping stuff, negative stuff. But if it's an attack on you or what you believe, it's still, you don't have to engage in it. So what? It's what they believe. Y'all know what Aikido is? Aikido is a martial arts where you never forcibly attack or take a blow. You step sideways and take your hand and just let their energy fly by. Learn emotional Aikido. Not my stuff, not getting involved. I bless you on your trip. Whoosh. Right? Where's that energy go? Back to them. Don't engage in it. Don't engage in the stuff. Don't take it personally. Be impeccable with your words. Don't take it personally. I love a couple quotes that came out of this book. Immunity to poison in the middle of hell is the gift of disagreement. Wow. Viktor Frankl found peace and love in the Holocaust. He didn't take it personally. And he wrote a book that teaches us how to disengage from what's going on externally, knowing inside of us none of it can touch you, and who your true self is. And there's examples of this over and over again. You are never responsible for the actions of others. You are only responsible for you. Only responsible for you. Whether it's parents, whether it's siblings, whether it's friends, whether it's spouse, whatever, you are responsible for you. They are responsible for them. Let the space happen. I love this one too. It ends with this. If you keep this second agreement and you keep your heart open, you can travel around the world and no one can ever hurt you. No one. Because you don't take any of it personally. Now that's a pretty high bar, but it's attainable for all of us as we begin to work and consciously make the shifts. Be impeccable with our words and don't take it personally. Another way to clean that we've been doing in this process is a violet fire. And I'm going to keep the same thing over these next couple weeks as we did last week. We begin it slow, a little bit faster, and then the third faster. Why? Because energy spirals.